Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Welcome to the G20 webinar series with the topic of biofuels for green economy today, 16th of June, 2022. This event hosted by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia, together with the Clean Energy Ministerial BioFuture platform. Distinguished guests, speakers, and participants, I'm Monica Conado, your host today, and I would like to greet all of you here who is present in this webinar series. I would like to greet especially His Excellency, Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priadi, Chair of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group, Indonesia 2022. I would like also to greet Mr. Prahoro Nur Cahyo, the co-chair of the Energy Transition Working Group, G20 Indonesia 2022. Mr. Dadan Kusdiana, the Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia. I would like to greet also Mr. Sunil Kumar, the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas of India, Mr. Sandro Furlan, Senior Energy Expert, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy, Mr. Keisuke Sadamori, IEA, Director of Energy Markets and Security, also Mr. Jim Spaeth, the BioFuture Platform Chair, and all of you here are distinguished guests and speakers. The G20 Energy Transition Working Group, we all know what this working group is aimed for, but I would like to remind you once again about what are the aims of this working group, which is to promote energy transition towards sustainable recovery and increase productivity through expanding renewable energy. And biofuel is one of the renewable energy source that plays an important role in the energy transition and provides numerous socio-economic benefits such as increased energy diversity and security, improve access to modern energy services, improve local air quality, economic development, and job creation. Distinguished guests and speakers, the biofuel development is in line with the major theme raised by the Indonesia's G20 presidency, which is Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The webinar today aims to provide insights into the socio-economic benefits associated with sustainable biofuel production and use, as well as to highlight the key best practices in the way forward for sustainable biofuel development. Distinguished guests and speakers, there are two sessions in this webinar. The first session, we will be listening to the presentation and discussion about the best practices and international analysis on biofuels for green economy. Meanwhile, in the second session, will be about the way forward for future sustainable biofuel development. Before proceeding to the session, let us first listen to the opening remarks that will be delivered by Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priadi, the Chair of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group Indonesia 2020. Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priadi, the floor is yours.
All the speakers and participants, greeting to you all, good afternoon from Jakarta. I am Yudo Dwinanda Priadi, Chair of Energy Transition Working Group, ETWG. It's pleased to welcome you all at the 10th webinar of the ETWG webinar series on biofuels for green economy. On the brief profile, G20 Indonesia Presidency addresses the main theme of Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The presidency has selected the three pillars: global health, architecture, digital economic transformation, and sustainable energy transition. The pillar of sustainable energy transition is organized by ETWG, addressing three priorities on accessibility, technology, and energy. We have done this meeting in ETWG in Yogyakarta, 24 to 25 March. The second ETWG will be in Labuan Bajo, 23 to 25 June 2022. In the first meeting, G20 members and invited countries welcome and endorse the three priorities in energy transition and the main agenda towards the key deliverables to accelerate energy transition in the Minister meeting and leaders summit, realizing its significance among the ETWG meetings. We will deepen issues of energy transition through the series of virtual webinars. Today, webinars on biofuels for green economy will continue the journey of energy transition discussion throughout the presidency's year. To the Clean Energy Minister, SEM, and Biofuture Platform, I would like to convey our presidency's compliment for taking the such role as co-organizer of today's webinar. SEM and Biofuture Platform will contribute as the appropriate forum for biofuels and entire bioenergy sectors in offering solutions for achieving Agenda 2030 and preparing net zero emission future. Biofuels for green economy are vital for energy transition in G20 perspective. First, biofuels for green economy will be an integral part to achieve just, equitable, and people-centered energy transition. Specifically, speaking on the green jobs, biofuel industry is the second largest renewable energy sector in terms of employment, only behind solar energy. By estimation, global biofuels employ around 2.4 million people, and the figure still excludes other related upstream and downstream sectors. Biofuels also significantly contribute to the achievement of Agenda 2030 SDGs as well as carbon neutrality. Besides decent job creation, the production and use of sustainable biofuels can also deliver multiple social benefits such as increasing diversity and security of energy supply, improving access to modern energy services, enhancing air quality, and boosting sustainable economic development. Second, continuing the spirit towards just transition, biofuels will also boost productivity as well as sustain green economy through the massive scale of development and investment. Taking the example from Indonesia, the National Mandatory Biodiesel Program in 2021 has produced around 16.3 million kiloliters of B30, 30% of biofuel in diesel fuel. The National Biofuel Program will take further step to the Green Refinery Program, taking the pilot project in Pertamina Refinery Cilacap City in Central Java. The first phase of this project will produce hydrotreated vegetable oil, SVO, or green diesel, a second generation biofuel product from refined, bleached, and hydrogenized palm oil, or RBDPO. Going forward, Pertamina plans to produce 6,000 barrels per day on 2025. I also do hope that this massive development scale of green economy will also disseminate in other G20 countries. Third, biofuels will be contributing to G20 for greening the economy and shape closer international cooperation among countries. While the sources of biofuels are limited to certain countries, the downstream economic sectors of biofuels and their derivatives relate to all G20 members. This will make international cooperation in energy transition and green economy from biofuels have more significant roles. In terms of innovative technology, international cooperation and partnership will strengthen the pathways to develop advanced generation technologies for biofuel industries, especially in emerging markets and developing economies. Moreover, international partnership in biofuels economy will enhance broader application of more sustainable biofuels in transport sector and other energy-related sectors due to significance of biofuels and other bioenergy sectors for future energy and economy. Finally, to the Clean Energy Minister and Biofuel Platform, all speakers, all delegates from G20 members and invited countries and all stakeholders, I wish you all have a successful webinar. Thank you.
Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priyadi, thank you for your remarks. And up next, please allow me to invite Mr. Sunil Kumar, the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas of India, to deliver the welcome remarks. The floor is yours, Mr. Sunil.
Good afternoon, esteemed panelists, delegates, participants, and namaste from India. I express my sincere thanks to inviting me for this conference. I congratulate the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, the Republic of Indonesia, Clean Energy Ministerial and Biofuture Platform for this topic of biofuel for a green economy under the theme of Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The conference opened up opportunity for all stakeholders in this arena, we also belong to that, to deliberate on the perspectives of a greener world. Our Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, has embarked upon an ambitious plan for biofuel through its national biofuel in 2018. Though we started early in 2005, but this really picked up in 2018. Ethanol, bioethanol, biodiesel, compressed biogas, and bio-ATF, or sustainable aviation fuel, which is called internationally, are biofuels on which we are working, and recently we have also added green hydrogen in this portfolio. We started very small in around 2005, but with this national biofuel policy in 18, we steadied our steps and started blending ethanol in gasoline up to 50% of the petrol sold in the country by 18-19. Buoyed by this encouraging results in ethanol blending by the ministry and the oil marketing companies, the target of blending of 20% ethanol in gasoline, which was earlier set at 2030, was advanced to 25-26 by the government. Last year, on World Environment Day, Honorable PM released our vision on ethanol blended fuel. The vision aligned various stakeholders, including the auto industry, government, ethanol producers, and others, for a bioenergy roadmap of the country. And this year, on the Environment Day, again, Honorable PM proudly announced that India has achieved 10% ethanol blending of 2022 in 5 months in advance. 10% blending means that all the gasoline sold in the country is 10% blended E10 specification. So this blending in ethanol in gasoline and advancing the target of 20% blending by 5 long years are indicative of the intent of Government of India for environment concern. And I am confident that we will achieve 20% ethanol blending in gasoline by 25-26. We aim to achieve these blends uniformly across the country in the targeted years. With the efforts made by government, the existing installed capacity of ethanol, which is around 700 crore liters, means that this means 7 billion liters, is likely to reach 1200 crore or 12 billion liters, which is required for 20% blending in gasoline by 25-26. The ethanol blending may also be seen as, you all know, that in context of import of petroleum and forex saving. We import 87 of our crude oil requirement. So in last 8 years, due to blending, we have saved around 41,600 crore rupees, that is 416 billion rupees in foreign exchange. And this saving not only is saved by government, this money also has gone to farmers. That spin-off has been very, very useful and influential in our country, because right from the refiners to farmers, there is a distribution of income. And you'll be glad to know that even farmers in last 8 years have received around 400 billion rupees revenue from ethanol, which is used as a fuel in the blended form. So Availability of large arable land, rising production of sugarcane and other feedstock, and advancement in technology to produce ethanol blended petrol is not only now a national imperative but also a strategic requirement for the country. In this effort of decarbonization, apart from blending of ethanol in gasoline, the role of our oil marketing companies have been stellar. In past over they have spent around 32,000 crores, that is 3 to 20 billion rupees, investment in refineries to reduce the sulfur content from 50 ppm to 10 ppm. We are selling gasoline and diesel, which is at par with Euro 6, with less than 10 ppm sulfur. This was done in a very short time. We have jumped from 50 ppm to 10 ppm in span of 2.5 years. This there is an evidence on emission level in country that shows there has been a positive impact of this various steps taken by our oil companies as well as ministry. Similar to ethanol blended program, another program for compressed biogas aimed at reducing waste and producing cleaner fuel has also been started. It is called SATAT, or Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation. In this scheme, the project proponents are given assured offtake guarantee for the biogas produced by them. As our gas grid expands and we are moving towards a more of a gas is because the intensity of gas in the energy is 6%, we are trying to move up to 15%. So as our gas grid expands and matures, these biofuel plants would be connected to the grid, the gas grid, which would enable local and global consumption of biogas produced. There is a plan to have 5,000 biogas plants, which would produce around 50 million metric ton of gas per annum by 25-26. Currently, 35 such units have already started production, and we are selling in retail outlets as compressed biogas for CNG vehicles. And 3,263 plants are in pipeline to be under setup. So another thing that byproduct of this compressed biogas is biomanure, which is helpful in repairing the soil ecosystem. And now government is planning to mandate it to be sold with normal fertilizer. Apart from this, our companies, oil companies, are setting up second generation ethanol plants in the country, which are also figuring in the list of hottest projects on bioeconomy. Due to these biofuel initiatives, there are few clusters are coming up in the country which use agri-waste, other waste to produce ethanol, compressed biogas, bioplastic, biochemicals, biomanure at one place. These are early forms of biorefinery complex we talk about and we are seeing in our country, which I am confident will dominate the landscape in the coming future. This would provide clean alternative for energy in future. It is very exciting to inform you that a biorefinery in India is going to start producing biofuel right next to a fossil fuel refinery that will start functioning in August this year. Ministry is also pushing towards ensuring wider availability of such biofuel in future as some of the infrastructure expansion plans are in execution and has been supported by our federal state governments also. Apart from these biofuel, we are now started working on bio-ATF or sustainable aviation fuel, which is called internationally, for which we are working on 3 demonstration plants which are under construction, which will produce about 100 tons per day of SAF in the country in a couple of years. Based on this development in biofuel, I am confident that our auto industries have also taken up and mobilized to bring vehicles for higher ethanol blends, or is called flex fuel vehicles worldwide in the country. This will be another step in the direction of energy security and efficiency of usage of biofuel in the country. The supply side improvement in ethanol blended fuel has to match on the demand side to make our biofuel program a success. And introduction of flex fuel vehicle and vehicle which can take higher blends of ethanol will help us blend higher percentage of ethanol in gasoline, and that will also reduce our import of gasoline in the country. Finally, as a country, we are adding more energy in our portfolio, but you know that the country is increasing, the economy is expanding, we need more energy. So therefore, we have aligned our energy goals and climate goals together so that they there should not be any confrontation, but synergy so that energy pool in the country is expanding, is accessible, affordable, and sustainable for her citizen in the future. Finally, I'll thank you everyone for this opportunity. I wish this seminar a grand success. Thanks everyone.
Mr. Sunil Kumar, thank you for your remarks, sir. From India, we will move on to Italy to listen to another welcome remarks that will be delivered by Mr. Sandro Furlan, the Senior Energy Expert of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy.
First of all, let me thank you all the G20 Indonesia organization, authorities and participants for the opportunity offered to attend this relevant event on a crucial topic in the context of green economy. Indeed, the world is facing additional obstacles toward net zero emission goals, but this is the moment to overcome contingent difficulties because the objective is strategic and vital for the planet's survival. The biofuel question deserves a major analysis and discussion of the benefits and critical issues we will face in the endeavoring energy transition. The G20 event series in the context of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group is very well placed to implement such goals. These topics need an international approach with national experiences sharing. National experiences will contribute to better understand priorities, financial dimension, and socioeconomic impacts of biofuels. Biofuels as a renewable energy source can be an important instrument to strengthen the security of energy supply that is, more than ever, at the core of a sustainable and resilient transition. This is particularly true for the transport sector, where the dimension of the sector, the extremely wide diffusion of the fuel network, and the alternatives to conventional fuels face bottlenecks and critical issues as well. But thanks to the technological advancement, we are able today to associate biofuels production to agricultural feedstocks for green refinery, being part of a circular economy paradigm with waste to fuel process to boost the energy transition. Furthermore, the new generation of biofuels rely on feedstocks that are not involved in the food agrobusiness. This is a relevant factor in making them a sustainable, socially and economically green alternative. Considering the social impacts and economic development, we should underline the importance of capacity building factor. A consistent framework, legal, fiscal, and administrative, is at the core of new energy markets that encompass also the biofuels. Training of administrative personnel in countries that are opening to the biofuel economy will be a key to success, especially for emerging economies. The job creation opportunities will be effective only if significant investment will be devoted to capacity building. To achieve such goals, the cooperation among international organizations, industries, and governments is essential. The European Union with the Repower EU has engaged a significant budget up to 70 billion euro to develop biomethane domestically produced, up to 37 for the period 2022-2030, and infrastructures. This confirmed the engagement in the energy transition, taking into account the new context. At the same time, the commitment to invest in the electric mobility remain a pillar of the EU strategy. Italy, as well, with the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, supports the development of the biofuels as an instrument of diversification, especially in the short term, that could favor a faster switch to alternative fuels. Italy has implemented specific policies and support measures in order to promote the consumption of biofuel and biomethane in the transport sector, allowing to increase the total quantity of biofuels released in the country from 1.2 million tons in 2017 to 1.5 million tons in 2020. Consistently with the EU strategy, Italy as well follows the path to the electric mobility as the main objective for sustainable mobility. We are convinced that this event will contribute to offer a clear picture of the biofuel status and the real perspective we could contribute to favor their diffusion for the green economy we want and the planet we wish. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much again.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Mr. Sandro. From India to Italy, and now we will move back to Indonesia to listen to the keynote address that will be delivered by Mr. Dadan Kusdiana, the Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia. Please welcome Mr. Dadan Kusdiana.
Very good afternoon from Jakarta. Thank you to Pak Yudo, my colleagues, as the chair of the Energy Transition Working Group for the welcoming remarks. I would like also to welcome the representative from the government of India, from the government of Italy, from the IEA, and also from US Department of Energy, distinguished speaker, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude and appreciation to the Clean Energy Ministerial through Biofuel Platform for the partnership to make this workshop happen as part of the G20 webinar series. The workshops raise the theme of biofuels for green economy, which aim to discuss the advancement of biofuel to clean energy transition and its role within the green economy, which hopefully will expose the socio-economic benefits of sustainable biofuel production and its use. It is truly a great honor for me also to host this event from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. So I'm looking forward for the fruitful exchange of ideas, information, and sharing experience. Participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the energy transition remains one of the priority issues in Indonesia's 2022 G20 presidency. Global climate conditions that seek to achieve the 1.5 degree target are almost unattainable, and these require more global efforts. Adopting the Paris Agreement rulebook from COP26 in Glasgow last year, this momentum propelled many countries to significantly increase their climate target by implementing energy transition as one of the objectives. Although implementing energy transition is very country-specific and must be carried out in various ways according to the energy potential, technological maturity, economically viable, and investment opportunities in every country. One of the energy transition potentials came from the use of biofuel. Biofuel is a reliable alternative to fossil fuel and has become a strategic role of their positive influence on various aspects. Biodiesel and biofuels are produced by renewable resources and provide added value through downstreaming domestic agriculture industries. In our case, for example, it helps stabilize feedstock prices and improve smallholders' welfare. In contrast to fossil fuel, it produces less greenhouse gas emission, and in some cases, this is carbon neutral fuel, and it reduces fossil fuel imports. The latter significantly saves our country's foreign exchange and trade balance, with the benefit of providing job opportunities locally and maintains our energy security. As for Indonesia, we are committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 29% in 2030 by our self-effort and 41% with international assistance. We also increase our commitment by setting the target of net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. Our national energy policy sets the energy mix by prioritizing new and renewable energy resources. The policy targeted that the new and renewable energy resources should contribute about 20% in 2025. Last year, the share of renewable energy reached 12.16%, and biofuel contributed about 35%. The introduction of the biofuel mandatory program in 2006 was in line with our national energy policy. It has been a long journey since its implementation. We could consider it has been successfully by looking at its current achievement. This program has been running for 15 years and has made Indonesia as the pioneer in biodiesel utilization with a 30% blending rate. In 2021, our biofuel production reached 9.3 million kiloliter. Meanwhile, current report in 2022 up to last month on May has been distributed around 40% of our target of 10.1 million kiloliter. Over its journey, the biofuel mandatory involved multi-stakeholders and did not always run smoothly. Several obstacles and challenges occur as a challenge to resolve. In the long run, it is essential to ensure that this program meets three main criteria. The first is technical standard, the second is economically reliable, and the last one, this is also very important, is the stakeholder acceptability. For future advancement, the sustainability of this biofuel program will influence by diversification of its feedstock or non-CPO based biofuel and the ability to develop technology for the next generation of biofuels. Following the net zero emission roadmap, biofuel development will not only be limited to the use of biodiesel, but more other biofuel products such as bioethanol, green diesel, green gasoline, and biojet fuel. The advancement of biofuel specification will eventually be according to the consumer and also market need. Future biofuel development will expect to utilize the biodiesel byproduct and also the advanced technology of the biofuel productions. We also believe in the need for biofuel development that inquires to the involved small communities and not only big enterprises. The small-scale program hopefully increase economic opportunities and creates a trickle effect for the communities. So in relation to improve the use of biofuel development, we stand by to follow the sustainability principles, involve farmers as part of small-scale development, develop better quality standards, create more efficient processes, and maintain stable and controlled price conditions. So participants, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, All accomplishment start with the ambition, self-confidence, and a desire to give the best for the nation and society. Various challenges in development will come through solid synergy. It is the key to the success of biofuel program. We believe solid networking among the government, researchers, associations, and private sectors domestically and internationally can elevate the implementation of biofuel to the next higher level. One of G20 goals is to stimulate the energy transition, which leads later on to sustainable recovery and the productivity. The effort can be started up by strengthening the global clean energy system and equitable transition, among others, through the energy accessibility, securities, upgrading smart and clean energy technology, and advancing energy finance. So lastly, I hope that this event will provide some recommendations or input for our common principles in accelerating clean energy transition, or it is called as Bali Compact, as well as also concrete deliverables of Indonesia's G20 presidency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dadan Kusdiana, for sharing with us the role of the biofuel for energy transition in Indonesia. Up next, we will still be listening to another keynote address about the role of sustainable bioenergy in clean energy transition. This time will be delivered by Mr. Keisuke Sadamori, the IEA Director of Energy Markets and Security. Please welcome Mr. Keisuke Sadamori.
Dear Mr. Yudo Priyadi, Chair of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group, Indonesia 2022. Dear Mr. Dadan Kusdina, the Director General, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Dear Mr. Jim Spaeth, Chair of the BioFuture Platform. Dear organizers, first of all, thank you very much for including the IEA to this important G20 workshop. The IEA is proud to be a strategic partner of Indonesia's G20 presidency. They both directly and indirectly, as today in our quality of a facilitator of the BioFuture platform. Could you please show me the slide? Yeah, next please. In the 18 months in the run-up to and during the COP26 in Glasgow, the countries accounting for up to 70% of global emissions, including Indonesia, have announced net zero or carbon neutrality targets. If fully implemented, these would lead to a substantial change in the emissions pathway, as shown by the bottom of the yellow zone. In the World Energy Outlook 2021, this pathway is called APS, the announced pledges scenario. But a substantial gap towards the goals of the Paris Agreement still remains, shown as this green zone. To close this gap, the world needs to significantly accelerate energy efficiency and all forms of renewables. And this includes bioenergy, the forgotten giant of renewables. Next, please. The IEA roadmap to global net zero emissions, covering more than 400 technologies, shows the need for a paradigm shift in energy supply and use. The energy efficiency is the first fuel and is critically important to decouple energy consumptions from the economic growth. As a result, today, a total energy demand decreases compared to today in our net zero roadmap by 2050, while the global economy is more than twice as large as in 2020. Furthermore, the roadmap calls for a paradigm shift from the current global energy systems based on the fossil fuels, supplying 80% of total primary energy today, to net zero energy systems in which renewables provide more than 2/3 of total energy generation. Next, please. In the IEA's net zero scenario, the modern bioenergy use rises to 100 exajoule by 2050, meeting almost 1/5 of world total energy needs and becoming the second largest source of energy supply after solar. For comparison, the use of hydrogen, this is a very popular topic in these days, increases fivefold up to 60 exajoule in 2050. Next, please. The biofuel play a critical role for net zero, in particular for hard to abate, hard to decarbonize sectors like transport or industry. The biofuels can bring a rapid decarbonization already in this decade, thanks to their drop-in fuel properties that require minor changes in the end-use technologies and assets. In the net zero emissions scenario, liquid biofuels are to more than triple by 2030. Moreover, through technical development, multiple sustainable fuels and bioproducts can be produced using biorefineries. And such innovations are also expected to unlock new sustainable feedstocks, including wastes and residues. The production of advanced biofuels is also well suited to be combined with carbon capture, use, and storage, leading to negative emissions. Another crucially important factor for reaching net zero globally by the middle of the century. So finally, the next please. So I congratulate the Indonesian G20 presidency for this important and timely workshop. And I'm sure that the bioenergy and the bioeconomy will remain an important topic in the G20 under the next Indian and the Brazilian presidencies, also through the commitment and efforts of the BioFuture platform. I wish you a very fruitful discussion today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Keisuke Sadamori, for your address. And now we will soon proceed to the first session. But first, let's listen to some introduction and scene setting that will be delivered by Mr. Jim Spaeth, the BioFuture Platform Chair. Mr. Jim Spaeth, I'm sorry to disturb you. Yes, you're still unmute. You're still muted. Yes, thank you. Please go on, Mr. Jim Spaeth, the BioFuture Platform Chair.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sure. Please go on, Mr.
Thank you very much. So it's a pleasure to be here among this esteemed panel. Of you. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our organization. We are a government-led initiative that brings together multiple countries from around the world focused on developing biofuels and the bioeconomy. Itself was established in 2016 under the leadership of Brazil. and in particular by my colleague, Mr. Renato Godinho, who will be speaking later today. The IEA became the secretariat and facilitator for the BioFuture platform. And in 2020, just 2 years ago, the platform became an initiative under the Clean Energy Ministerial. And 1 year ago today, the U.S. Department of Energy took over as the chair. I apologize, but I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm hearing a bad echo, and is everyone else hearing the same thing? I'm going to switch to the video audio, if you'll give me just a moment. Let's hope this can work a little bit better. I think that sounds better. So in the BioFuture platform, there are currently 22 member countries, including our host for this G20 event, Indonesia, and other previous speakers, countries from India, Italy, and Brazil. We also try very hard to collaborate with leading bioenergy organizations around the world, including the IEA Bioenergy Technology Collaboration Program, the FAO, the IEA, IRENA, and others. Have the next slide, please. So the BioFuture platform is established to take on challenges that we believe are universal for bioenergy around the world. That being promoting technology collaboration and development, forging consensus on biomass sustainability, availability, and governance, developing supportive financing mechanisms, and promoting policy guidance and conversions. In particular, this second area, the challenges of biomass sustainability, availability, and governance, is an area where we have a very focused work stream. And the results of that work stream will be presented at the upcoming Clean Energy Ministerial. If I could have the next slide, please. Which will be taking place in the United States this fall in Pittsburgh. Hosted by the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm. So the United States is very excited to be hosting this event in collaboration with the Clean Energy Ministerial Secretariat. If I could have the next slide, please. At this event, we will have 5 different side events. The first being a minister roundtable with CEOs, leading companies from around the world. The second being a public event focused on sustainable aviation fuels to involve CEOs, ministers, secretaries, non-governmental organizations from all around the world addressing the challenges of biofuels. Third event is a new workstream area that we are just starting, focused on carbon intensity-based policy for transporting chemicals. And then we'll also have additional private meetings to continue the development of the BioFuture platform and the BioFuture campaign. I could have the next slide, please. And finally, I'd like to point out that all of these meetings are just on the pathway to continuing the bioeconomy development. This event today, the Bioenergy event, followed by the Clean Energy Ministerial in Pittsburgh in September, leading to the Conference of the Parties in Egypt later this fall, and then going on to the next ministerial the following year, hosted by India. So I want to thank you for your time, and it's a pleasure to be part of this event today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jim Spaeth, for your presentation. And now we will move on to the first session with the topic of best practices and international analysis on biofuels for green economy. Let me mention first, our speakers are from Brazil, India, Indonesia, and also U.S. Grains Council. And in this first session will be moderated by a moderator, Mr. Sultan Muhammad Yusa, Indonesian Palm Oil Plantation Fund Management Agency of Indonesia. I would like to share some little bit of profile of Mr. Sultan Muhammad Yusa, or we also mention him as Mr. Yusa. Is a public officer from the Ministry of Finance that is currently serving as the division head of social institution and civil society for palm oil fund management. He holds a bachelor degree for accounting from Universitas Indonesia and master for international business from University of Melbourne. His long career with the Ministry of Finance started from 2005 before he was assigned to the Ministry of Finance and the Civil Society for Palm Oil Fund Management in July 2015, started as a senior analyst on palm oil research funding. Distinguished guests and speakers, please welcome our moderator in this first session, Mr. Sultan Muhammad Yusa. The floor is yours, Mr. Yusa.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very honored to welcome all the participants and fellow colleagues for taking part in this very important program. Hope you can hear my voice clearly. As we all knew and aware, energy transition is one of the substantial and important priorities and highly relevant to the G20 summit. In particular, in this session, we will talk about the importance of biofuels as part of a clean energy transition, and the use of biodiesel in a more sustainable way couldn't be more imperative. Widening the kind of feedstock or material base for biofuels will help relieve some of the pressure from limited supply constraints and boost up resilience in sudden changes in the market dynamics. And we have heard all the importance of initiating these policies from the opening remarks and the keynote speeches. And next, we will hear how the best practices and international analysis on biofuels for green economy. And we already have here with us 4 excellent speakers that will discuss this further. Let me start by introducing them. First, Mr. Hernani Genu Neto, Business Development Manager for Energy Transitions, Raízen Brazil, will present to you about second-generation ethanol for innovation and growth. Mr. Hernani is Raízen's new Business Development Manager for E2G and Energy Transition, industrial engineer by education and holding an MBA degree from INSPIR. His career has been built over biofuels trading and logistics, delivering decarbonization solutions for multiple geographies and various applications such as biofuels, bioplastics, and biochemicals. And our second speaker, we will have Mr. Yash Mankami, Head Business Development for Ethanol Technology from Praj Industries, India. We'll discuss the biomobility flag bearer for a green economy. And Mr. Yash is a chemical engineer by qualification and has more than 30 years of experience in development of bioenergy projects, while Praj Industries is a leader in the bioeconomy space, specializing in technology, engineering, and supply of first-gen and second-generation ethanol plants, bio-CNG plants, and wastewater treatment solutions. And next on, we will hear from Mr. Caleb Wirth from the U.S. Grains Council. We'll talk about the importance of global ethanol trade for transport decarbonization. Mr. Wirth served as the Regional Director of Southeast Asia and Oceania for the U.S. Grains Council. a nonprofit organization that promotes the use of U.S. barley, corn, sorghum, and related products such as ethanol worldwide. In this capacity, Mr. Wood identifies, designs, and executes market promotion programs that foster the mutually beneficial trade of these products to the countries of Southeast Asia and Oceania. And finally, my colleagues from Indonesia, Mr. Paulus Cakrawan, as Vice Chairperson Indonesia Biofuel Producer Association, or here in Indonesia are well known as APROBI, will give presentation about B30 implementation as biodiesel pioneers in the world from the perspective of challenges and benefits. Mr. Paulus graduated as an electronic engineer, and in his early career, he handled aircraft engineering and maintenance. He was managing the PT Indo Biofuels Energy, which was one of the palm oil-based biodiesel producer pioneers in Indonesia since 2005. At the end of 2006, he was also one of the formation initiator of Indonesia Biofuel Producer Association and the Secretary General of the chairperson. And teamed up with the other sectors, the association carried out an active role to promote biofuel, including palm oil-based biodiesel in Indonesia. Okay, so as we only have 40 minutes for our session, each speaker will have 8 minutes to present. And by the end of the last speaker, we will have a bit of discussion for the remaining time. And without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Mr. Hernani Jenu Neto. The time and screen is yours.
Hello everyone. Can you confirm please if you see my screen now, my presentation?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, that's good. You see it full screen or the PowerPoint application? Okay, now you see full screen, right?
Yes, full screen. You can start.
Okay, firstly, I would like to thank very much G20 organization for the opportunity to attend this important meeting, this important workshop. Thank you for also Mr. Yusa for the quick presentation. So I want to introduce myself. Today, it's gonna be a very quick and objective presentation. I would like to take this opportunity to share rising experience with second generation ethanol in a very brief slides, and also a little bit of thoughts and reflection about the future of second generation ethanol and also ethanol itself. So to start with, I'd like to share with you where we are standing in terms of second generation ethanol. So as many of you would know, we have an up and running operation in Brazil of second generation ethanol, where we have already produced more than 100,000 cubic meters since 2014. This is our operational plant. Then last year, we were very glad to announce that we decided on investing in a second second generation plant that is under construction now. In not more than 8-10 months, it will start up. So very, very good news on that. And it's worth to mention that this second plant is it's double the capacity of the first one. Very recently, not more than 2 months ago, we have announced 2 more investments, 2 more plants with the same capacity of the second one that they are going to start up in 2024. One early 2024 and the other one late 2024. But we won't stop there. We have a quantity of biomass enough to build more than 20 second generation ethanol plants. So when we have a public commitment to put these plants up, and so you can expect more announcements in the short terms, in the coming months. So this is the intention to share that is that this is a reality. Like for us, is very easy to see the reality because we've been producing for more than 7 years, but now like we are in the middle of a lot of works to put everything, to put the plants up, more than 20 plants for our future. Well, something that I've been asked a lot is what are the main challenges of building 20 plants in 10 years? I forgot to mention that the 20 plants that I mentioned, our commitment is to build them in the next 10 years or until 2030. So what are the main challenges for that? It's a new technology. No one does that in the world yet. So new equipments, new people. So the main challenges are that new equipments and specialized people to operate those plants. It's not something that you buy the equipment on the market because there's no market for that. We are developing that together with our suppliers, and you cannot hire technical people for this. You have to produce itself. So this is our two main challenges that a couple of years ago we've noticed that, and we are structured now we have structured ourselves in order to tackle this, in order to solve this. And by solving this, that gave this confidence to invest ourselves in more plants, and to make the commitments that we have made. So in terms of volume, this is the growth production curve of second generation ethanol. This is regarding only Raízen's biomass. We don't need to be limited to that, even though it's a lot of biomass. We don't need to be limited to that, and we don't want to be limited to that. I mean, licensing this technology or finding other ways of sharing this technology with the world is within our strategy, is within our objectives. So, but anyhow, this, as you can see, as a very steep growth in the production of volume with our own biomass, and that could be even steeper as we enhance our ability to build more plants. The biomass is there. The biomass is in a lot of places. So our main challenge for the next years is to accelerate accelerate people's training in order to make this happen. Sorry. Okay. We're talking about ethanol, right? So another question that always comes is, what if electrification? What are you going to do with that much of ethanol? I will answer this question with two answers. The first one is that electrification doesn't necessarily mean energy transition. It's a very important part of the solution for sure. But here I can show you, here in Brazil, I'm based in Brazil now. So here in Brazil, we fuel our cars. We can fuel our cars with 100% of ethanol. And this is in a well-to-wheel approach this is the comparison between the case in Brazil of a car fueled with ethanol only in comparison with electric vehicles. So if you see the comparison, even in Brazil, the E100 ethanol-based car is even more have even less carbon emissions than the electric car. So this is part of the answer, and the next part of the answer I show here. The fact is that the world uses only a very small part of ethanol. In the example of light vehicles fuel, if we would get a world ethanol blend in Brazil, we have in average we have 50% blend. US 10%, India 10%.
Sorry to interrupt, but please, if you can wrap up, you have maybe 1 more minute.
Okay, no, this is the last one. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
So the message here is that we have a lot to grow because we are still, as you know, a fossil-based world. So even though we get full electric, we have SAF, we have plastics, we have many other potential to growth in other avenues. That was it. Thank you so much. Terima kasih banyak. As you know, no single solution, but we are committed here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hernani, for a very short and concise presentation. Next, we will hear from Mr. Yasman Kami. I'm sorry, we only have 8 minutes for each speaker, so that's very short, I understand, but maybe we will have a very fruitful discussion after this. Okay, Mr. Yasman Kami, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Can you... Good day, friends. And first of all, thank you to the G20 webinar organizers for inviting me to speak at this seminar. What I'll be speaking on is biomobility, flag bearer in green economy. Basically, we equate green economy to bioeconomy. So I'll be using the word bioeconomy more often. Next, please. A brief overview about our company. Praj Industries, we specialize in technology, engineering, and supply of plants for first generation and second generation ethanol plants, bio CBG, SAF, and other advanced biofuels. We were voted as the #1 company to work for in bioeconomy by Biofuel Digest this year. And have more than 1,000 references worldwide. In fact, about 10% of global ethanol production is produced from Praj technology plants. Next, please. Bioeconomy. Basically, bioeconomy is a solution for sustainable climate action. It's a circular economy which uses renewable sources to produce energy and renewable products. It results in sustainable decarbonization and is environmental friendly. And in fact, bioeconomy positively impacts 11 out of the total 17 sustainability development goals which are defined by UNFCCC. Next, please. Biomobility. We define biomobility platform, which is a platform of technologies which utilize bio-based feedstocks like agri-waste or organic waste to produce low-carbon renewable transportation fuels. And this can be over all modes of transport. So these are conventional biofuels like biodiesel and first-generation bioethanol, advanced biofuels like second generation bioethanol and renewable natural gas, and next generation biofuels like SAF, biomethanol, and biohydrogen. This contribute to a country's economy by energy security, rural development, environmental benefits like reduction in air pollution, reduction in GHG emission, and of course the resulting health benefits, and also resulting in rural job creation and forex saving. So biomobility definitely contributes to the development of a nation's economy. Next, please. FTP, as we call it, feedstock, technology, and products are the three pillars of biomobility. So it can be first generation feedstock like sugar and starch, which can be used to produce first generation bioethanol and biobutanol. Then there can be lignocellulosic feedstocks like agri biomass, bagasse, paddy straw, wheat straw, which can use second generation technologies to produce advanced biofuels like second generation bioethanol or SAF. In fact, our company is building 3 commercial scale second generation bioethanol plants in India for the 3 major oil marketing companies in India. And the first plant, which is based on rice straw, will be in commercial production this year, 2022. Then there's industrial and other waste, which can be treated by anaerobic biodigestion and can be used to produce compressed biogas and other advanced biofuels. In fact, we are also building compressed biogas plants in India, which is contributing in a very positive way to the Satat program of India. Next, please. If you look at evolution of biomobility, then traditionally there have been the first generation and bioethanol as well as biodiesel. Then there is the cellulosic bioethanol plants, second generation bioethanol plants. And we see second generation bioethanol plants being front runners in the development of biomobility over the period of next 5 to 6 years, with so many commercial plants coming up in India as well as other plants worldwide. 2G ethanol we see will be at the forefront as we move forward. Then there is bio-CBG contributing to a replacement of CNG and bioethanol. Future biofuels, which will be sustainable aviation fuel and biohydrogen, they are at developmental stage, and we see commercial plants coming up in the near future. Next, please. So this brings us to the concept of biorefinery. Biorefinery, which is a shift from the traditional hydrocarbon-based economy to a carbohydrate-based economy, which uses carbohydrates or waste carbohydrates to produce renewable products. So it can be a biomass or a waste oil-based refinery where you can produce, bio-CNG, bioethanol, biobutanol, sustainable aviation fuel, renewable diesel, lignosulfonate bitumen, and other products. So this will result in a shift for economical, societal, and ecological benefits. And Praj as a company and also India is committed to accelerate CI reduction to align with the race to net zero goals. Next, please. So thank you for your patient listening. And once again, thank you to the organizers.
Thank you, Mr. Yashwakami, for your pressing take on the subject. And we will move on to our next speaker, Mr. Caleb. Mr. Caleb, you can start your presentation. The screen is yours.
Good day, everyone. It is an honor to be able to speak to all of you about ethanol's role in decarbonizing transport. As we recover together, recover stronger, I want to thank the Republic of Indonesia for taking a global leadership role in decarbonization. Much of this progress has been achieved through progressive biofuel policy. The time for addressing humanity's effect on our planet is now, and we have the tools today if we only seize our moment. Because much of the world's electricity, which would power the electric vehicle fleet today, is based on coal and other fossil fuels, we believe biofuels is today a true viable transition solution. My name is Caleb Worth, and I'm the Regional Director of Southeast Asia and Oceania for the U.S. Grains Council based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The Grains Council is a public-private non-for-profit partnership. With headquarters in Washington, D.C., the Council has offices all over the world whom are committed to supporting the use of bioethanol as decarbonizing tool in the global transport sector. As political and commodity volatility is being felt around the world, the Council wishes to remain a steadfast partner linking the U.S. coarse grain industry and ethanol industry to the world as we have done so in earnest for decades, providing the tools and feed and food security to our global partners. I will begin my presentation with an agenda slide that summarizes why countries all over the world are choosing ethanol to meet their climate and transportation needs. Ethanol is by far the cleanest source of octane in the world. Ethanol can make petrol more affordable for our most vulnerable populations. Ethanol improves air quality by reducing CO2 emissions, especially in the countries with weak healthcare systems. It is the world's most researched biofuel, resulting in 64 countries using ethanol as a component of gasoline. I will start with the carbon intensity of ethanol. The CI score of ethanol is 40% that of neat gasoline. And ethanol plants are achieving even better scores as plants begin to venture into CO2 capture and other technologies. Land use is a major concern of some CI models. The US produces exponentially more corn on less acres of land than we had in 1930. This efficiency is a huge win for our natural lands. These GHG emission savings have been enjoyed in places like the United States, where since 2005, these states have saved 544 million metric tons of CO2 equivalents. 544 million metric tons of CO2 equivalents. These savings are measurable and available today. As nations begin to design various cap and trade programs, ethanol usage may be a tremendous opportunity. Here, I show you the carbon intensity scores of comparable gasoline components. It is important to note that ethanol is an octane enhancer and should be compared to other available aromatics. Importing ethanol does not increase net imports, simply replaces high polluting aromatics, fossil fuel aromatics, with a greener octane. On the chart, I'm presenting MTBE as a widely used octane compared to ETBE, which is a low blend ethanol product, and pure ethanol itself. In addition to environmental savings, ethanol provides economic savings, which is critical to many nations today. You see clearly that ethanol is the most cost-effective octane component for fuel today. Many countries with biofuels policies today are utilizing the availability of competitive global ethanol prices to help subsidize higher cost local production. This important domestic import production model serves as a cost safety net for domestic production and not direct competition. All of these savings have led to countries all over the world adopting ethanol policies. Ethanol is currently being used in both developed and developing countries alike. Each nation must choose an import domestic production model that is best fit for them. The Council's job is to help with this modeling. I want to end with the critical point that ethanol is an achievable strategy toward decarbonization of developing nations. Achievable today. That is because of short-term implementation period with minimal infrastructure modifications. Ethanol reduces GHG emissions and improves population health. Ethanol provides opportunities for domestic economy and industrial production. And ethanol, finally, has a trade balance savings from replacing fossil fuel imports for cheaper and greener octane. I want to finish my time with an applaud to our host country, Indonesia, for recently developing their own biofuel roadmap, which I look forward to assisting where needed to achieve. Thank you very much. I look forward to the journey to sustainability together, and I'll yield my time back to the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Gail. Well, very interesting. And we'll move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Pak Paulus. Apa kabar Pak Paulus? Semoga sehat-sehat selalu ya Pak.
Baik Mas Yusa, terima kasih.
Oke, silakan Pak, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Can you see our presentation?
Not yet. Mungkin teman-teman sekretariat bisa dibantu. Ini yang terlihat.
Stop sharing aja, lagi mulai lagi. No, yeah. Maybe secretariat can support us to sharing. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The implementing biodiesel 30% is one of Indonesia's champion to have the renewable energy, sustainable, affordable, supporting the green economy toward the net zero emission. Next, what drives us to run the biofuel program in 2005-2006? Oil has been produced at Sumatra. It's about more than 100 years ago. And in 1970s, 80s, 80% of our state budget was obtained from export of crude oil. Around 2004 became a net importer. So the biofuel program for the public service obligation started in 2006 and mandatory has started at 2008. The biofuel program has a goals energy security, resilience, poverty alleviation, and environment. Next, ladies and gentlemen, biodiesel industry has a rapid growth in the last 16 years. Next, the location of the biodiesel industry spread out all areas. Even though most are in the West Indonesia, we have a lot of distribution challenges. Next, since 2006, the installed capacity is about 16.6 million kiloliter. And in 2020, we began to use the B30 mandatory, first in the world. 2021, domestic consumption reached about 9.3 million kiloliter. It is similar to 8 million tons and about 58.5 million barrels. It seems the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't have much effect. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people asking, how about the supporting feedstock next? From the 48 million ton our CPO production last year, 63% was exported and about 37% for the domestic use. Last year, biodiesel production for domestics took 15% from our palm oil production, and this year, our projection is biodiesel domestic will use 17%. Next. Surely, we are all concerned about the sustainability, environment, social, and economy. Next, considering to the sustainability, we have a moratorium on deforestation for any use since 11 years ago, and moratorium for the new palm plantation since 2018. Also, it has been reformed. We formed the Peat Restoration Board in 2016. And a lot of the plantation implement the RSPO, Roundtable on the Sustainable Palm Oil Standard, and also ISPO, Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil Standard. And soon we have the ISPO Downstream and Indonesia Bioenergy Standard Indicator. And some of them implementing also the ISCC standard. And of course, we continue to develop the biofuel environment-friendly processing technology. Next, emission reduction and energy security. In 2021, the biodiesel contribute reducing 22.59 million tons CO2 equivalent. It means about 7.8% to the greenhouse gas emission reduction energy target as Indonesia in NDC in 2030. Significantly decreasing diesel fuel import about $3.8 billion. Next, ladies and gentlemen, how about the social and economic impact? Early mid-2020, there was a decline, of course, in CPO prices due to the falling world oil price and the COVID-19 pandemic. In May 2020, CPO prices have started to improve until now. And it is 1.4 million upstream workers involved in this project. No doubt, there are a lot of challenges to developing and implementing biodiesel until 30%. Next, this year, our projection is for domestic use, we will use 10.15 million kiloliter. It is about 63 million barrels and will produce by 24 companies. And our capacity is 16.6 million kiloliter. And we will use 1.68 million upstream workers. And it will be increasing farmer income and reducing 24.45 million ton CO2 equivalent. So to achieve above, we have to develop next the development of energy from the palm continued and heading to the biohydrocarbon products such as gasoline, diesel fuel, also the aviation fuel. We keep struggling to use bioethanol in gasoline. Research on microalgae and other types of raw material continues to be explored and developed. Of course, we also improving the technology process. Next, ladies and gentlemen, what are the challenges of developing biodiesel? Of course, first is biodiesel quality to meet the transportation technology demand and also stakeholder support. We are working with all the stakeholders, pricing policy. As you know that biodiesel in Indonesia price is above of the fossil fuel. We have a oil palm plantation fund, OPPF institution to support the biodiesel mandatory implementation and trade barrier, a lot of trade barrier. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we have to do a lot of effort toward the net zero emission in the energy transition and its challenges. Increasing the implementation of diesel fuel substitution. We are trying now to go to B40 actually, realizing the gasoline substitution and realizing the after substitution by after. The challenges are accelerate to energy transition, sustainable biofuel, technology, user acceptance, economy, affordable, and cooperation. Next, as the conclusion, next, B30 Indonesia program will never happen without the synergy spirit along the stakeholders, like the government, private sector, academy, research center, and thankful to the All Palm Plantation Fund for supporting the program. Next, so now biodiesel program is really supporting the SDGs, reducing the fossil fuels import, resilience, and affordable, significantly impact on the green economy program toward the net zero emission, and also answering the climate change challenges, undeniably decreasing the greenhouse gas emission. Toward the net zero emission pathway for the transportation fuel, biofuel is the right energy for the energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, with it, I conclude my presentation with the appeal to you, to all countries, to have to collaborate to develop more economic, more sustainable, more advanced biodiesel, biofuel to support the net zero emission. Recover together, recover stronger. Next, thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Pak Paulus. Okay, since we only have a little bit of time left before we move on to our session, maybe for this discussion session, I will ask just one question, and this is for all the speakers, maybe except Pak Paulus, because Pak Paulus already mentioned this by the end of your presentation, Pak. And the question is, what are the challenges in your respective country to implement biofuel policy in an energy transition effort? And maybe how does implementing this policy help your country's energy security? And perhaps in a short and concise answer, please, from Brazil, India, and US. Maybe start from Mr. Hernani.
Maybe I should open the time to my colleagues, because we have already regarding ethanol, we have structure for more than 30-40 years to use 100% ethanol and also our biodiesel program. So I would like to leave the time for my colleagues.
Okay, maybe from the India, Mr. Yash.
In India, the challenge is scaling up, but with the current government support that the industry is getting and the positive policies of the government, we see that overcoming these challenges would not be an issue. And in India, at least, the biofuel program is moving in a very positive and sustainable manner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yash. Hopefully it will progress over time. And okay, lastly, Mr. Caleb, perhaps you have your take on the subject.
Yes, thank you. From my standpoint, I think a major challenge that not only Indonesia faces, but other countries around the world face is the availability of feedstock and ambitious goals. And the fear, I think, to limit the industry to be open to the global trade of ethanol, which will enable local production, specifically from a cost standpoint. As the industry is fledgling and is growing, the domestic cost of ethanol will be high. And so supplementing imports in the short term to enable the local industry to become more efficient and decrease cost for the consumer will be a policy hurdle and a social hurdle, I think, that these countries will have to face. But certainly for every liter of ethanol produced domestically and even imported from friendly countries, it certainly diversifies the fuel mix and adds to fuel security.
Right. Okay. Maybe next for Paulus. This one's going to be a little bit different question, Paulus. And what do you think of will be next for Indonesia in terms of energy transition, specifically from the biofuel perspective?
Thank you, Mr. Yusa. First of all, it's about to expand using the biodiesel. And today we are trying to have a test for the B40. And for the next, of course, we have to use the advanced biofuel, such as like, the distillate biodiesels and also the hydro-generated biodiesel. It is very important for us to go into more advanced biofuel. Thank you.
Okay. I think we can wrap this up because I believe we're already a little bit far beyond our allotted time, and we can right away start our next session. Thank you very much for all the speakers for your very excellent and enriching presentation. Hopefully we can meet again in another opportunities. Thank you. And the time and place, I will give back to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Yusa. Makasih.
Thank you, Mr. Yusa. And I know we are all joining this webinar from different places, from different countries, but we're all connected virtually. So please give a round of applause from wherever you are for all our speakers and moderator. Thank you very much. And now we'll proceed to the second session, discussing about the way forward about this event. The speakers are from the Pertamina Indonesia and also from Italy, USA, and WWF South Africa. And in the second session will be moderated by a moderator, Mr. Renato de Godinho, the Head Division for Energy Progress, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Brazil. And some short profile about our moderator today is that Mr. Renato is a journalist and communicator by graduation, and with a master's degree in international diplomacy. Mr. Renato has 19 years of work as a career diplomat and heads of division for renewable energy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Brazil. He was heavily involved in the creation and early management of the BioFuture platform in 2016. Mr. Renato, in 2019, was appointed by the member countries as the BioFuture platform's first chairperson for a term of 2 years, and then passing on that role to Dr. Jim Spaeth from United States Department of Energy in June 2021. Distinguished guests and speakers, please welcome our moderator in the second session, Mr. Renato de Godinho.
Hello, good morning and evening, and afternoon to every one of you. I wish to greet distinguished authorities and my fellow moderators, colleagues in this panel. I'm very happy to introduce the second session for the current webinar, The Way Forward for Sustainable biofuels. So we have learned so far so much about the technologies and practices, and also about the need and the benefits of biofuels for the green economy and for the energy transition. So we have heard a lot of that, and now we hope to explore with our distinguished speakers how does the feedstock can respond, and how these green refineries and advanced biorefineries are able to help in mastering this feedstock and taking this bioeconomy to the next level. So in scaling up, developing new technologies, new agricultural practices, incorporating new feedstocks and products, and see what is the sustainable potential and how to develop this potential sustainably. I hope this panel helps to answer this question, which is also posed by the participants in the chat. So briefly, I want to introduce our speakers. We are, as you know, a little bit behind the schedule, and we have received authorization from the organizers to move a bit beyond, some 15 to 20 minutes beyond the closing time. So I thank you for patience, but still I ask all the speakers to be concise and keep within the time. We are very happy to count on the participation of Taufik Adityawarmanan, the Chief Executive Officer of PT Petermina in the subholding for refining and petrochemical in the business group. He has graduated from Institute of Technology Bandung with a Bachelor of Engineering degree, followed by a Master of Business Administration from Universitas Indonesia and several other professional titles. He is going to speak about strengthening commitment and securing energy through green refineries development. Following that, we'll listen to the presentation of Mr. Federico Maria Gratti, Head of Agri-Energy Solutions from Eni, Italy. He's an environmental engineer with 20 years experience in bioenergy and large agricultural value chains, and responsible for integration of agri-feedstock into biorefineries, which is the subject of his presentation. We'll then have the presentation of Ms. Lindsay Fitzgerald, Vice President of Government Relations from Gevo, USA. So moving to USA again, Ms. Fitzgerald has operated as Senior Manager and then Director at the Renewable Energy Group, a leading provider of biodiesel and renewable biodiesel, where she was responsible for developing and implementing a comprehensive regulatory policy strategy at state, local, federal, and international level. And now, working as Vice President in Gevo, she's going to talk about biofuels for climate change mitigations and sustainable agriculture. Last but far from least, we'll have here the felicity of listening to the presentation of Mr. Farai Chireze, bioenergy analyst from WWF, South Africa. So the World Wildlife Fund is a very widely known NGO working on climate and sustainability, biodiversity protection. And WWF has worked on a report on the potential and opportunities for sustainable aviation fuels in South Africa. And you listen from the Farai, who is a seasoned chemical engineer and renewable energy expert, with a focus on environmental sustainability, climate change adaptation, and mitigation. So Farai is passionate about sustainable travel and is working on SAF and in the potential for developing this feedstock sustainably. With those introductory remarks, I'm very happy to pass on the floor to Mr. Taufik Adityawarmanan, Chief Executive Officer, Petermina, for his presentation on green refineries development.
Thank you, Mr. Renato. for the times being given. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, and ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to have presenting the opportunity in green refinery development in Pertamina Group as a way forward from the G20 initiative to develop the biofuel as one of the initiative. And also, before starting the presentation, I would like to introduce myself. Currently, I serve as Chief Executive Officer for Subholding Refineries and Petrochemical of Pertamina Group. And today, I will present about Pertamina Green Refinery, which will become the most trending topics and will be the future energy for this global. Next slide. Okay, I will start with this new and renewable potential energy outlook in Indonesia. As stated in Indonesian Energy Outlook, derived by National Energy Council, it's mentioned that the declining fossil energy production, especially crude oil, and the global commitment in reducing greenhouse gas emission have encouraging the government to increase the role of new and renewable energy continuously to maintain energy security and independence. As shown in the slide that we have a target in new and renewable energy increase to 23% in 2025 and 31% in 2050. This also provided with regulation, government regulation number 79 of 2014 on national energy policy, new and renewable energy mix, a target that mentioned earlier. So it means that we have the basic, the ground basic to develop the renewable energy. Where the Pertamina role in this part or contribution? So we have to produce the plant base for fuel. So that's what I will further explain. Mean focusing on plant base into green fuel has similarity in the production process and expertise with the processing of crude oil in Pertamina's current or existing refineries. So this to us as Pertamina is considered as renewable crude oil of refinery processing. Next slide. So what the status of biorefinery development in Pertamina? So PT KPI as subholding refiners and petrochemical has a long history in developing the expertise and for processing biomass, plant-based feedstock into green fuel. This expertise was developed by performing of series commercial test run for processing and stand-alone processing bio feedstock in the existing refinery Dumai in 2014, 2019, and 2020, and in refinery Cilacap in 2020 and 2021. So in this slide, we have two processing system, co-processing and standalone processing. Mean that with current co-processing plant, we have produced biojet fuel 2.4%, and with the standalone plant, with renewable feedstock, 100% processed as feed. So we have produced green diesel 100%. What the next step is to further develop in our Cilacap refinery is to develop the TDHT unit revamp in 2 phases. The first phase has been completed in January 2022, so with capacity of 3,000 barrel per day, and will be continued to the next phase 2 to increase the capacity to 6,000 barrel per day. And this product has been launched last month for green diesel 100% to support the e-formula in Jakarta. Next stage. And what about certification? As explained in the earlier presentation, that we have done the certification or certify the product using the ISCC for our biojet fuel and green diesel 100% by Intertek. So mean that this fulfill the requirement of international sustainability and carbon certification. ISCC as one of requirement for sustainability of energy. So this is explaining what the composition of the product and what the test has been done for bioafter or biojet fuel. We have flight tests by using the CASA 235 Jakarta-Bandung route. And for the green diesel, we have run the test for over 50,000 kilometers. And finally, we have launched last month for supporting the power generation for recharging the EV in the Formula E. Next slide. And this slide is explaining the roadmap of developing biojet fuel and green diesel development in our plant. So starting from 2020 until now. So that's what I explained earlier. We have successful developing the biojet fuel 2.4% and green diesel 100%. Next. Okay, before I closing, so the next challenge probably is continuity of supply, the feedstock of supply, and also the acceptability by the market and expansion of the market of this product. So mean that business continuity and business sustainability can be attained. Thank you. That's my presentation. I'm handing over to Pak Reno.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taufik, for those remarks. We wish now to hear from Mr. Grati, Head of Agro-Energy Solutions, ENI, on integration of sustainable feedstock.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that the mic is working properly. So please give me a signal that you can hear me. I hope yes. Okay. So
yes, we can hear you.
So let me thank G20 Indonesia for the invitation and International Energy Agency and all the relevant stakeholders that are attending the meeting today. Thanks so much. It's a very useful discussion, and I hope that we can provide a small contribution. Now, before going in our very, very short presentation, if you allow us, I would like to set the scene with a very short video showing what we are doing at the moment. So we'll let the video go and then briefly talk. Oh, well, thank you so much. Sometimes I think that the short video or a picture tells more than 1,000 words. So this is what we are doing now. We can go with the first slide. I would like just to contextualize our projects on biofuels. We have a target for net zero net by 2050, also considering what we call scope 3, so the emissions related to our customers that are using their cars or heating or lighting their houses. So considering both our emissions, scope 1 and 2 and 3, we have an absolute target, I said, net zero 2050 with this trajectory that I'm putting here with a reduction of 35% by 2030. And in terms of the net carbon intensity, it's -15, -50, and then -100%. So totally decarbonized in 2050. Now, biofuels represent an important lever in this transition, especially looking at scope 3. So regarding the use of alternative low carbon fuels in transportation. What we have today, we have two biorefineries running in Italy, one in Venice and one in Sicily, with a total capacity 1.1 million ton. We have a plan within the 4-year plan to double this capacity, so going up to 2 million tons. And in the long term, by 35, or in the period between 35 and 50, we are expanding to 6 million tons. So by having a role, I would say, in the industry, and by using a proprietary technology that has been developed with Honeywell UOP and American technology. So what we do HVO, are sustainable aviation fuels. So we are not using oxygen, but we're using hydrogen in our hydrocracking process. And our fuel, green diesel, I would say, or HVO, can be used 100% in blending in car engines or terrestrial engines, and up to 50% for air transportation. So going beyond the blending wall of biodiesel. In terms of carbon intensity, we go up to 80% in case of valorization of waste and residues. So, I mean, the total emissions of a vehicle running on pure HVO is really comparable with an electric. The overall LCA balance is very, very competitive. We can go to the next one quick. So, what are we using? I mean, as I said in the previous slide, we are phasing out palm oil next year in our biorefineries, and we are introducing, through vertical integration initiatives, the so-called low ILOC feedstock. There are two main categories. One is given by the cover cropping and double cropping and increased yield in existing agricultural areas. The second possibility, and we have a deep passion for this, is the valorization on unused, abandoned, or severely degraded land, even polluted land. So introducing cash crop, energy crops in land that is not used for food production. This mechanism is certified in Europe by certification bodies. We work with the SEC, which is one of the ones. And by using this philosophy and by relying on this certification, we avoid direct and indirect conflict either with food production or with forests. The feedstock we are exploring, we are developing are cover crops like Brassica carinata, Camelina sativa, and safflower. We are also using conventional oil seeds. Sunflower is one example, and also very innovative no-food feedstock like castor you have seen in the video. We go quickly to the next one. Now the model is quite simple, I would say. We are not farmers, and we're not becoming farmers. So our goal is to guarantee access to markets, to local farmers, by guaranteeing them access to land. So we are not cultivating, we are not taking land concessions. We are building a network of factories, what we call agri-hubs, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, and we rely on the local production of farmers that are trained, and we give assistance to them to reach the target in terms of volumes and in quality. Now, the bio oils, so the feedstock is, of course, destinated to our biorefineries, either in Europe or elsewhere, if they will come. And we want to boost on the valorization of byproducts, especially animal feed, directly at the source. So in those sub-Saharan countries that are really in need for proteins for animals that they have challenges in terms of food security. We go to the next one quick, just to stay with the time. So where are we? I mean, we started, as you've seen in the video, in Kenya and Congo, that are the countries already in operations, but we have quite a large portfolio of initiatives undergoing, most of them in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in Central Asia and in Italy as well. So overall, by 2030, we will build a portfolio of such vertical integrated agriculture project in such this large number of countries. The way we work is we partner with local governments. So in those countries, we signed MOUs with the local governments for the development of such initiatives. And then from this very strong relationship with the governments, we start working with national authorities and also with the private sector. I think there's 1 minute, half a minute for the last slide. I want to underline the importance. Those are the benefits, but due to the lack of time, I will keep it for further reading. I just want to mention that our project must be sustainable for us and for our stakeholders, meaning for the farmers, in the 3 dimensions of sustainability, so social, environmental, but also economic. With the last one, I would like to leave the floor to the others. I mean, I just want to mention the importance of partnerships in the development of our vertical integration program. We already have set up quite an interesting network of partnerships. I would like to mention IRENA. It's a project, very interesting project for capacity building of public offices coming from African countries to be trained on the themes of feedstock, sustainability, certification, value chain, logistics, infrastructure, etc., etc. The first bunch of countries would be Kenya and Rwanda that would be trained through this partnership. And then I would like to mention the discussion we have with most of the international banking system, development banks, and also with the cooperative cooperation agencies, especially to provide further support to our suppliers, meaning the local farmers in those African countries. I've been very, very fast, I know, but this is my presentation. I hope it has been comprehensive for you.
Thank you, Mr. Gratti, for these words, and thank you also for the beautiful video. I think both the video and the presentation have given us lots of answers to this question of how to source the sustainable feedstock for the global needs to replace fossil fuels.
Thanks,
and now let's give the floor to Ms. Lindsay Fitzgerald, Vice President of Government Relations in Gevo, USA.
Morning, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you clearly.
Perfect, thank you. I'll give my slides a minute to pop up. Thank you everybody for being here today. Thank you for inviting us and having us. Today, I would like to just quickly introduce you to Gevo. We're going to talk about the demand that you're hearing so much about this morning and how we are in scaling up quickly using existing technology and enabling that zero emissions fuel to come out while working with our farmers and getting that fuel all the way to those fires and harnessing the power of agriculture. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of Gevo. We are based in Denver, Colorado, just south of Denver, Colorado. We were founded back in 2005, so we have been at this for quite a long time, producing SAF. We've had SAF on planes and delivered to airports around the world. We are currently building up. We have obviously very big goals as a country, as a world, and Gevo specifically intends to produce 1 billion gallons by 2030. So we want to do that through decarbonizing the whole entire chain. We're looking at everything from the field and the farmer to flight. So we want to take advantage of what we have today on hand with carbohydrates and using technologies that we know work. Next slide, please. So as we said, demand is increasing. You all know this. This is a very familiar, probably top slide to you about SAF demand. We are scaling up. We are working with world-class leaders that have technologies that are proven. We are signing contracts for product and for SAF to come off of out of our facilities with airlines and companies around the world. So this is happening. This is moving in the right direction. Next slide. And what we're doing as a company is using something that's available today. So carbohydrate-based feedstocks, in our case in the United States, we are using corn, low CI corn to be exact. We're taking that through a fermentation process, which is very common. And then we're taking it through a proprietary process with the Axens technology that will produce a sustainable aviation fuel, renewable diesel, renewable gasoline, as well as a number of chemical options. The beautiful part about what we're doing is that through this whole process, we are powering it with defossilized energy. That is critical to what we are doing. So be it wind power for our facility that we are building in South Dakota, to anaerobic digestion for biogas for that process heat. We're also producing hydrogen. We will be producing excess hydrogen, and we will be able to provide electricity, green electricity, back to the grid for our local communities. Working with our farmers to implement those climate smart ag practices is also critical. And I'll get into that in the next slide. So this is a little bit more in depth of what our process looks like at our net zero facility that we are building in South Dakota. So on an annualized basis, 37 million bushels of low carbon corn will be coming in. What does that mean, low carbon corn? It means that we're working with our farmers to help them look at their land and implement low climate smart ag practices, whether that's low till, no till, whether that's utilizing a soil microbiome so that they can sequester the most carbon in their soil possible. We'll take that through our process of converting to ethanol and converting to jet, but again, keeping that energy off of the grid. So we will be supplying all of our own energy in this process. The other beautiful part about this is we're not just producing the end fuel. As we're taking this corn in, we're also producing 420 million pounds of feed. We're producing 31 million pounds of corn oil. These are not insignificant numbers. We're not just taking a kernel of corn and turning it into fuel. We are producing food, we are producing fiber, and we're sequestering carbon at the same time. That's the beauty of what we're able to do. And we're able to take this and apply it to existing ethanol plants as long as we can decarbonize through the whole entire process. Let's go to the next slide because this is a really important part. So as we're looking at what we're doing, we are counting carbon. We are counting all of the carbon. We are not leaving carbon on the table to say we don't want to count this, we don't like this carbon. So we're looking at our corn. We are looking at the ILUC values. We're looking at better land management, the chemicals and everything that goes into place. In the United States, we're using our US Department of Energy's Argonne GREAT model. And in the ideal scenario for our Net Zero 1 plant, if we can include and count all of this carbon that we are sequestering and abating, we can get to a potential -40 CI SAF. That is delivered to the jet on wing as a -40 CI SAF. So the beauty of all of this is you have to count all of the carbon. You want to be able to incentivize the change, recognize and incentivize the change. And we're doing that. We can go on the next slide. In our local communities. So Lake Preston, South Dakota. This is going to be one of the largest capital investments in the history of South Dakota. As I said earlier, we are using wind power. A 60 megawatt wind farm will help decarbonize not only our plant, but the local community and the local grid. This is bringing in jobs, construction, as I said, extra hydrogen. The local community has said we would like to see additional, EVs driving to our community. We'll have that extra clean energy that we can help supply back to the grid. This is where we're coming in and building a facility, and we intend, by hitting that billion-gallon goal, to do this in many other places that the feedstock is readily available, where we can continue to work with the farmers to make sure that what we're getting in meets our needs. Next slide, please. And again, getting back to that agriculture side and working with our farmers, some of this may be a new vision to you and it may not be. But utilizing those climate smart ag practices to sequester carbon in the soil, we're seeing a higher yield. We're seeing less inputs going in. If the land works for low till or no till, that's phenomenal. That can reduce the CI immensely. And this is where we want to be. We want to talk about feedstock availability, that we can count the carbon. We're not saying that we don't like one particular feedstock because of something that it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. We want to look at it today. We want to look at your field, your farm, how you are doing it by counting with science and not bias. And then we can take that and count all of that carbon again through science all the way through until combustion. And I think that's where we need to be looking as we're redeveloping this economy for clean fuels and anything else that we wish to be doing and decarbonizing. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions at the end. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, for this. I think you provided more parts of the answers we are seeking with this very close attention to life cycle of carbon throughout the whole chain and practices that can reduce the emissions of the system. So now I think we continue on the same thread and also to talk about the potential and opportunities for sustainable aviation fuels in South Africa and how this can be done sustainably. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Farai Chirezi from the World Wildlife Fund.
Thank you very much to G20 Indonesia as well as the organizers for this event for the opportunity for me to speak. I'll just be sharing some snippets from our study that we did as WWF South Africa to highlight some of the potential opportunities from establishing a local sustainable aviation fuel industry, or SAF, SAF. Next slide, please. So why should South Africa pursue a sustainable aviation fuel industry? I think the first and foremost important thing is that we have an excellent resource base. We have had through in this workshop before how feedstock is a challenge, and South Africa does have quite a number of feedstocks that they can use to produce sustainable aviation fuels. We also have long-standing experience with promising SAF production technologies. In this case, I'm talking about the Fischer-Tropsch processes. So Sasol, which happens to be the largest operator of Fischer-Tropsch facilities in the world, is a South African company, and we can tap into that expertise to grow this industry. Not to mention the need to start decarbonizing our own aviation sector. According to IATA, sustainable aviation fuels will contribute to about 65% of the aviation emission reductions by 2050. So there's definitely a big role that SAF will play in that. Another opportunity for South Africa would be the export opportunity that sustainable aviation fuel will have. That we will produce SAF for our own domestic consumption as well as some surplus for export. Next slide, please. So in our assessment, we looked at various technologies and feedstocks to produce sustainable aviation fuels, namely Solaris seeds, and Solaris is a nicotine-free tobacco, sugarcane. We looked at industrial waste gases as well as lignocellulosic waste. And in this lignocellulosic waste, a large component of it were invasive alien plants. So these are typically eucalyptus, pines, and wattle trees that have been growing in our forests. They have a huge water footprint and have negative impacts on biodiversity. So it is an environmental priority that South Africa get rid of these invasive alien plants, and they can give a feedstock for SAF production. Next, please. Next again. So you see there the highlighted areas look at the pathways that we found out to be the most economical in terms of SAF production. Next, please. What we also did in our analysis was look at two scenarios. Was to look at two scenarios for producing sustainable aviation fuels. We looked at a self-sufficient scenario, and in the self-sufficient scenario, the biorefinery would produce all its energy needs as well as all its hydrogen needs. So that is to say the hydrogen for refining and processing would come from the biomass itself. We also looked at an external energy scenario where you're using green hydrogen produced by renewable electricity to produce SAF. Next slide, please. The diagram on the left gives you the total SAF potential in South Africa. So 3.2 billion liters in the self-sufficient scenario and 4.5 billion liters in the external energy scenario. So you see a huge increase in SAF when external hydrogen is used, because most of the carbon in the biomass is actually going to the SAF product instead of producing hydrogen. If you compare the South African jet fuel consumption pre-COVID, it was about 2.5 billion liters. So not only is the South Africa SAF potential enough to meet the domestic demand, but also for export. And in our analysis, we also looked at putting different sustainability requirements. We've heard about ICC as one of the certification schemes out there. In our analysis, we used the Roundtable on Sustainable Biomaterials, RISB criteria. On the right-hand side, you see the locations of the SAF facilities. You see most of them are around Johannesburg, which is the largest airport in South Africa as well as Africa. So that is close to the market. And we do have refineries closer to the coast as well. And these would be good for export opportunities. Next slide, please. When you talk about the socio-economic impacts of a SAF industry, we are talking about almost 40,000 direct jobs during the construction phase. South Africa is a country suffering with triple challenges of poverty and unemployment. So establishing a SAF industry will help to alleviate poverty and result in job creation. If we talk about Solaris, growing Solaris could contribute to about 19,700 agricultural jobs. The picture that you see on the screen is from a pilot project back in 2016 where Solaris was grown in South Africa. And that Solaris was used to produce SAF for the first aviation fuel, the first SAF flights in South Africa by South African Airways back in 2016. Overall, about 90,000 green jobs can be produced can be a result of a local SAF sector in South Africa. Next slide, please. So if you focus mostly on the graph on your right-hand side, you will see that most of the jobs in the operations phase are direct jobs, and most of those direct jobs are in feedstock sourcing. So that is growing the Solaris crops or clearing the invasive alien plants that I talked about. And these jobs are mostly located in rural areas. It's an opportunity to alleviate poverty in those areas. Next slide, please. As you may know, transporting biomass is a huge employment opportunity, and you can see that the amount of jobs, almost 7,500 tracker jobs, that could be a result of sustainable aviation industry in South Africa. Next slide. You see that about most of these jobs are located in the northeastern parts of South Africa. And that is the area that we have most of our coal mines. Now, as the coal industry shrinks due to the energy transition, it's most likely that coal truckers or coal haulers will lose their job. So there's an opportunity to actually transport or divert these coal truckers from transporting coal to transporting biomass. Next slide, please. So just to conclude quickly, the domestic SAF industry could be a pillar of South Africa's low carbon economy and can play a critical role in the country's just transition process with over 90,000 green jobs. There's a huge technical potential of producing sustainable aviation fuels and also employment to farm workers and others in the rural areas. And there's a huge opportunity to also create employment for truck drivers and help those in the transition of transporting coal. And also important is the linkages to the sustainable aviation fuel industries to the new hydrogen economy. that is gaining a lot of interest in the ground. So it's an opportunity to tap into this momentum and develop the two industries simultaneously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kiresi. I think your presentation was really an eye-opener, and thank you for bringing attention to the value of bioenergy also in creating jobs. It is a huge job creator. We indeed in Brazil had a similar assessment for SAF potential that reached some of the conclusions that were also reached in South Africa. So that's very important. And I would like to thank all the panelists for the initial presentations. And since we are very short of time, indeed already going overboard, I would like just to pose a question for you. I think, unfortunately, Mr. Gratti had to leave. But I wanted just to highlight one thing. So we have heard earlier this morning that bioenergy has at least to triple in the coming decades to help the world meet its climate goals and reach net zero. So do you believe the feedstock can answer to that, can respond? Is the feedstock available to be developed for this? And what would be the mechanisms that you believe in terms of policies to generate the demand, unlock the investments, and also policies that give you confidence that this feedstock can respond in a sustainable manner? So I will hand the floor over to Mr. Taufik for his answer, and then moving to Fitzgerald and Kiresi.
Okay. In my opinion, that sustainability of feedstock is can be managed. I think by first, probably government have to be visible to regulate, right? Because currently in bio feedstock is still have to prioritize in between the food intent and also the fuel, and later the capacity if those have to be implemented side by side. So mean extensification or capacity of feedstock has to be fulfilled. That's my opinion, Renato. Thank you.
Thank you for this perspective. This is, let's hear from Ms. Fitzgerald as well on this topic of the policies and controls.
So I think on the policy front, I mean, first, yes, there is enough feedstock that is there and available. On the policy front, again, I think the policy needs to be science-based without a thumb on the scale for what we may or may not want to see. So there is plenty of feedstock available. If you want to see it be more sustainable, then let's count that carbon and we can incentivize it. We can recognize it, and we can create a continuous loop of improvement. So working with our farmers, working through the community, we can make sure that there is an excessive amount of sustainable product that can not only fuel our world, but feed our world as well. And the long-term policy too, I will make that plug. So there needs to be long-term certainty as we're looking at these projects and looking at investment, something that is 1 to 2 years, or you're hearing rumors that maybe the government is unsure of how they want to move forward. That's not great for investment. So if we want to see these projects go big and go long-term, we need to see that that policy certainty as well.
Thank you very much. So policy stability and certainty, it's important. You have your word, Mr. Farai.
From a South African perspective, I think our largest potential of producing sustainable aviation fuel would be these invasive alien plants that I'm talking about. So currently we do have government programs involved in clearing them, but what we see is most of the times these cleared plants are left in the forests and they become a fire hazard, etc. So from a policy perspective, we'd like to see a case where government intervention and government and cross collaboration with the government and the private industry, whereby these programs that are already in place can tie into sustainable aviation fuel supply chains, so that we can get these projects on the ground and going. And then from crop biofuels perspective, I think the biofuel industry in South Africa has been quite slow to grow. We do have some biofuel frameworks that have been proposed, but the industry hasn't really grown to the scale that we know it can. So we really need to see a lot more support from a farmer support mechanism coming in from the government, and also an expansion to the amount of crops that could be grown. Traditionally, this tend to be your sugar crops, the sorghum and sugarcane, etc. But as we have seen in this workshop before, there are other types of crops that could be in line to get those incentives. And I think that is something that the governments need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So looking at all the crops, all the possibilities, creating synergies, and I think this is an important keyword. I wish to thank all the presenters here and close this second session. And I believe I will come back here for some brief conclusions and next steps before the closing remarks from our co-chair. But for now, this session of the panel is closed, and I will turn over to the Master of Ceremonies, and then I will come back for the conclusions and next steps from our overall workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Renato. Yes, that's right. You'll be delivering conclusion, but first, let us all give a round of applause to all speakers and moderator. We mentioned it before, so Mr. Renato will conclude both sessions on this webinar, also mentioning the way forward after this event. Please welcome once again Mr. Renato D. Godinho, the Head Division for Energy Progress, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Brazil.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your attention and being with us so far. This has been an excellent day of presentations that brought many perspectives on this important issue on how to scaling up sustainability on bioenergy. And I wish to go back to a keyword that we have heard from Director General Dadan Kusdiana and others in the Indonesian government. The keyword is synergy. So the success is created from the synergy between public sector, government, private sector, academia, and also civil society organizations. And if we are to scale up bioenergy, this forgotten giant of renewables, as we have heard from Mr. Keisuke from the IEA, we have to work within the synergy. And the chair of the BioFuture platform today, Jim Spave, presented the platform. BioFuture platform is the foremost international collaboration initiative on the bioeconomy and bioenergy. And I believe it exists to promote precisely that kind of synergy in the international level. And the BioFuture platform is now hot in the works of one such work, bringing synergy on biomass, quantification, and sustainability. So we are calling it the sustainability work stream. And the idea is to bring together governments, private sector, academia, and civil society for a science-based process. So we have also heard today in this last panel about the importance of being science-based, based on evidence, and not having biases on the outcomes that we wish for. So bringing these evidence together and creating more convergence on precisely what are the mechanisms that we need to ensure the practices to develop this biomass potential and make sure it is sustainable and won't have negative impact. So we have heard many answers here to this puzzle, and they include controls on deforestation, promoting soil carbon sequestration, no-tillage practices, climate-smart agriculture, land management, getting at different kinds of feedstocks, food, feed, and energy systems that can develop all that at the same time, advanced biorefineries that can use different feedstocks and produce different products on demand, and also create subproducts that will be important for materials, food, feed, and others. So there are many pieces. The knowledge is here. We just have to put them together in synergy. And very happy to announce here in the context of the G20 under Indonesian presidency that this sustainability governance work stream under the BioFuture platform is being submitted as one of the concrete deliverables for the G20 this year. So I'm very happy this is being formally submitted, and we hope to have it considered and approved by the G20 Sherpas and being part of the leaders' declaration of the G20 by the end of this year. So we have a roadmap of actions ahead the next few years to get all the stakeholders to work on this framework for creating more convergence and more consensus on these practices and methods for delivering the next step on biofuels. And the roadmap, as also Mr. Jim Spaeth explained, goes now to September in Pittsburgh, in the United States for the Clean Energy Ministerial, where we have announcements regarding this. It goes to the Energy Ministers meeting in Bali, in Indonesia this year. And it goes on, I would say, the next 2 years will be very exciting as India in 2023 and then Brazil in 2024 will hold the presidency of the G20, and we have heard here presentations from both India and Brazil, countries which are also moving the needle in sustainable bioenergy production, scaling up new technologies, innovative policies, and I believe that this work over the next years will be crucial to create this greater policy understanding commonly across different countries so that the investments can be unlocked and the bioenergy can grow and biofuels sufficiently in a way that meets the climate goals. So with that, I close my presentation and will pass on the floor afterwards to our co-chair of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group. Thank you all for attention. Recover together, recover stronger.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Renato, for your conclusion. And of course, we all do hope that everything that we discussed today will turn into concrete actions in the future. And distinguished guests and speakers, we're finally at the end of today's event. And to close this event, let's listen to the closing remarks that will be delivered by Mr. Prahoro Nurcahyo as the co-chair of the Energy Transition Working Group G20 Indonesia 2022.
distinguished speakers and participants. Greeting to you all. Good afternoon from Jakarta. As a co-chair of ETWG, I'm pleased to conclude this webinar on biofuels for green economy. In today's webinar, we have been exploring the perspective for reinventing and maximizing the role of biofuels in improving sustainable economy through best practices, global analysis, and way forward. Reflecting on those comprehensive topics, let me highlight several essential points. First, biofuels still hold the enabling keys toward a green and sustainable economy. Biofuels mainly strengthen the pillar of a just, equitable, and people-centered energy transitions. In fact, among all global renewable energy sources, biofuel sectors have become the second largest contributor of jobs after solar industries. This highly significant contribution of biofuels stretches in the massive industrial value chains from the upstream in agricultural sectors into the downstream in transport sectors and other energy consumption related sectors. Second, innovative technologies will continue to strengthen biofuels' contributions in achieving Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and net zero future. Despite significant portions of electrification in transport sectors of global net zero emission, biofuels are projected to contribute around a quarter of energy sources in global transport mix. Due to their roles as energy technologies for achieving green economy, biofuels require innovative technologies to enhance their sustainability. Ensuring the sustainable future of biofuels development is necessary because biofuels are not only limited to bioethanol and biodiesel, but may also be developed for bioether and green or biorefineries. This is particularly important for advanced generations technologies, which should be widely researched, developed, and deployed in biofuels industries. This webinar demonstrated some of the best practices for developing this advanced generation technology, which has become our common reference for biofuel development. Other low and zero emission supporting technologies could be added both in the downstream and upstream sectors of biofuel industries. Third, in global and regional level, international cooperation in sustainable biofuels must be enhanced. This is important to improve the value chains of biofuels industries, reduce the gap in disparity in the technologies and the market, and to improve technological and industrial partnership. All this will be pivotal to assure access, availability, affordability, and security of flows and supply chains in global biofuel industries, so that the transition toward net zero emission will leave no one behind. Moving forward, we are planning to amplify the recommendations, practices, and experiences in utilizing biofuels for green economy in the content of the key deliverables of G20 ETWG in the ministerial and leaders level. Join us as we continue the G20 ETWG virtual webinar series. I look forward to seeing you all soon in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prahoro Nur Cahyo. Your remarks also officially ends today's session and webinar of G20 event series with the topic of biofuels for green economy. Of course, we do hope that today's fruitful discussion and recommendation paves the way forward to G20 Energy Transition Working Group to together achieve a sustainable biofuel implementation across G20 member countries. I would like to say thank you for all your participations and cooperations. Today, we truly hope to see you once again on our next G20 event. See you and goodbye. Recover together, recover stronger.